The Matrix theory, the universe is a simulation. Imagine for a moment that everything you see, touch, and hear is not what it seems. The chair you sit on, the phone in your hand, the voice in your head reading these words, all of it might be nothing more than an elaborate illusion, a simulation created to keep you unaware of the truth. This idea may sound like the plot of a science fiction movie, but it is a question that has haunted human thought for thousands of years. Are we living in reality or inside something carefully constructed to appear real? The modern world was shaken by this question in 1999 when The Matrix burst into cinemas. The film told the story of Neo Amen, who discovers that his entire life is part of a massive computer program designed to keep humanity trapped in ignorance. What a thought was real was only digital smoke and mirrors. Behind the code, a darker reality existed, one where machines harvested human beings for energy. The film stunned audiences not only with its groundbreaking visual effects, but also with its terrifying concept. What if our entire existence is nothing more than lines of code, written by something far beyond our understanding? The Matrix was a cultural earthquake, but it was not the beginning of the idea. It was only the latest expression of a suspicion that has followed humanity across the centuries. Long before computers, long before science fiction philosophers, religious thinkers, and scientists all wrestled with the possibility that reality might not be what it seems. Over 2,000 years ago, the Greek philosopher Plato offered the allegory of the cave in his story. Prisoners are chained deep inside a cave, unable to move or turn their heads. They see only the wall in front of them. Across this wall, shadows flicker, cast by figures moving in front of a fire. The prisoners mistake the shadows for reality. They know nothing else, and so their shadows become their truth. But a fond prisoner escapes and sees the world outside the cave. The sunlight, mountains, rivers, and skis. He realizes that what he once believed to be real was only a crude illusion. Plato used this allegory to explain human ignorance, but in hindsight, it is eerily similar to the Matrix. The prisoners live inside a false world, and only a awakening allows them to see the truth. Centuries later, in the 19th century, the French philosopher René Descartes asked himself a disturbing question. Could everything he saw, felt, and believed be the work of a powerful deceiver? I imagine the possibility of an evil demon, capable of creating false sensations, convincing him of a world that did not exist. If this were true, he could never trust his senses, never trust what he thought was real. From this thought experiment, he reached a single conclusion that could not be doubted. It think, therefore, I am Descartes. Swaz not describing a digital simulation, but his reasoning aligns perfectly with the central fear of the Matrix. What if our senses can be manipulated completely? What if we're trapped in an illusion, so perfect we never realize it? These philosophical seeds lay dormant until technology caught up. The 20th century saw the rise of computers and digital worlds. By the time the Matrix hit theaters, the idea of a virtual reality indistinguishable from the real one did not feel impossible anymore. The film became a symbol, a cultural code for the suspicion that reality itself might be manufactured. Only a few years later, in 2003, philosopher Nick Bostrom at the University of Oxford proposed a formal version of the idea that became known as the simulation hypothesis. His argument was elegant and unsettling. He presented three possibilities. First, almost all civilizations like ours may go extinct before they develop the ability to run ancestor simulations, entire digital worlds containing conscious beings. Second, even if civilizations reach such technological heights, they may have no interest in running such simulations. And third, if advanced civilizations can and do run them, then the number of simulated realities would vastly outnumber the one original base reality. If that is true, then statistically we're almost certainly living in a simulation, and note in the base world. Bostrom's paper transformed what once seemed like science fiction into a respectable topic for scientific debate. His logic suggested that the Matrix was not only possible, but perhaps the most likely explanation for our existence. This idea quickly spread beyond philosophy. TechVis, Honoris Wade and Elon Musk famously argued that the chance we're living in base reality is 1 in billions. His reasoning was simple. Look at the progress of video games. 40 years ago, they were little more than dots bouncing on a screen. Today, we have immersive three-dimensional virtual worlds with millions of players interacting in real time. Now imagine what technology could achieve in another 1,000 years. The leap from top photorealistic virtual reality happened in just a few decades. How much further could it go if civilizations survive long anew? It seems inevitable that they will create worlds so realistic that the inhabitants cannot distinguish them from reality. And if it is possible, then why should we assume we're in the original reality, rather than one of the countless simulations? Scientists too began to notice strange hints in the fabric of the universe. Quantum physics, in particular, raised unsettling questions. In the famous double-slit experiment, particles like electrons behave like waves until they are observed. The moment they are measured, they collapse into definite positions. It is a SIF reality waits for someone to look before it decides what form to take. This so-called observer effect resembles a video game engine that only renders graphics when the player turns their camera. Without the observer, there is only potential like unfinished code waiting to be processed. Even deeper discoveries followed. Some researchers noticed that the equations describing the universe could be expressed in patterns, resembling computer code. Strings of ones and zeros appeared within the mathematics of physics. The universe, it seemed, might not be built from matter alone, but from information. This led some scientists to claim that reality might be digital at its core, that beneath atoms and energy lies something that behaves very much like programming language, and yet the suspicion that the world is an illusion is not unique to modern science. Ancient spiritual traditions expressed the same idea long before electricity existed. In Hindu philosophy, the concept of Maya describes the world as a grand illusion, a veil that blinds human beings from seeing ultimate truth. In Buddhism, the realm of appearances is Khan's idea dim, permanent, and deceptive. What we think of a solid reality is fleeting and insubstantial. These teachings echo across centuries, and when compared with modern theories, they sound strikingly similar. Perhaps science and spirituality are circling around the same hidden truth, that the reality we experience is not the final layer, but a mask covering something deeper. This convergence of philosophy, science, and spirituality leaves us with unsettling questions. If our world is a simulation, who or what created it? Are we the products of advanced humans far? The future running experiments on their ancestors, or are we the invention of non-human intelligence displaying God with entire universes? And if we're simulated, what does that mean for concepts we hold dear, such as free will, love, and meaning? If every decision is ultimately a line of code written into the system, then is free will an illusion? Are our emotions just pre-programmed responses designed to keep us functioning within the simulation? Or does consciousness have a special role that transcends code? These questions strike at the core of human identity, and they are the reason the Matrix hypothesis terrifies as much as it fascinates. Part of the reason the Matrix film resonated so deeply is because it dramatized these fears in a way we could feel watching Neo awaken from the dream of ordinary life and realize he was plugged into a machine fusion through cables into his brain, was horrifying because it suggested we might face the same fate. It gave us a story to express the nightmare that reality itself could be false. And yet the fascination does not fade, because deep down the idea makes a certain sense. The world, then feels too strange, too improbable to be natural. Coincidences occur, patterns repeat as if some hidden script is guiding events. Many people feel as if they are caught in a loop, watching his story recycle itself again and again. The suspicion lingers that maybe reality is not natural at all, but constructed. So here we stand in the 21st century, surrounded by smartphones, quantum physics, artificial intelligence, and ever-advancing virtual reality, and we find ourselves asking the same question as prisoners in Plato's cave or thinkers in ancient India. Is what we see real or only a shadow projected on the wall? Is our world authentic or is it code? The question cannot be easily dismissed because it touches every part of our existence. If we're in a simulation, what does it mean to live a meaningful life? Do our choices matter if the script is already written, or is meaning itself something we create within the illusion, our rebellion against the possibility that nothing is real? This is the paradox that makes the Matrix hypothesis so powerful. It terrifies us, but it also compels us to search for answers, because if reality is well set, the most important mission of humanity might be to wake up to see what lies beyond the veil. Whether that beyond is a higher level of reality, a creator civilization, or something entirely unimaginable. And so the origins of the Matrix hypothesis reveal a long human struggle with the mystery of reality. From Plato to Descartes, from Hollywood films to Oxford philosophers, from ancient scriptures to modern science, the suspicion has always been the same. The world may not be what it seems, and truth may be hidden behind layers of illusion. The Matrix is not only a movie, not only a theory, but the latest chapter in our timeless quest to understand what is real. Reality of 10 feels stable, dependable, and concrete, but the rare moments when that sense of stability shatters. Unexplainable events, coincidences that seem impossible, and bizarre experiences that defy natural law, that the world may not be what we think it is. If life is a simulation, then perhaps every now and then the system reveals small cracks, little errors that slip through the code. These glitches disturb us because they seem to break the rules of everyday life, and they suggest that the truth may be stranger than anything we can imagine. Take the phenomenon of déjà vu. It is the eerie sensation of reliving a momentous fight you have experienced it before. A street corner feels familiar, though you have never been there. A sentence is spoken by a friend seems to echo from memory, though you cannot recall when you heard it. Scientists attempt to explain déjà vu as same as firing of memory circuits, but many people feel it is more than that. In the Matrix film, Neo experiences déjà vu when he sees a black cat pass in the exact same way. His companions recognize it immediately as a glitch in the simulated world. Perhaps our real experiences of déjà vu are not mere brain errors, but subtle signs that the program running reality has stuttered. Beyond déjà vu lies the unsettling world of coincidences. They happen far too often, and with such precision that they feel orchestrated. A man dreams of a song he has never heard, only to turn on the radio the next day, and heart the same melody. A woman thinks of an old friend she has not seen in decades, only to receive a message from that very person hours later. Such events are brushed off as chance, but the odds against the mere astronomical what-if coin. Silences are not accidents at all, but the system reusing lines of code generating repeating patterns, just like a video game recycles background textures. Then there are the urban legends and real testimonies of people who describe being in two places at once or stepping into an environment that doesn't belong to reality. Stories of individuals who vanish for minutes or hours, only to reappear without explanation, persist across cultures. These experiences, often called slips in time or interdimensional shifts, feel like evidence that the boundaries of this emulation sometimes falter. Perhaps the system running reality occasionally reboots fragments or overlaps, causing human beings to witness temporary distortions. Consider also the strange effect known as the Mandela effect. Large groups of people collectively remember events differently from how history records. The millions swear that Nelson Mandela died in prison during the 1980s. I lived until 2013. Others insist that the children's book series was called the Berenstain Bears. Not the Berenstain Bears, some remember. Our movie lines soar brand logos differently than they actually are. How could entire populations misremember the same detail? Unless reality itself has shifted versions as thought the simulation updated its files, leaving behind echoes of the previous code. Stranger still are the small but disturbing physical glitches people report. A car vanishes from a road without explanation, only to reappear moments later. People's where they place an object enable only to return and find it missing, then reappearing in its exact spot the next day. A man sets down his keys watch, sees them vanish in front of his eyes, and finds them hours later in a place he had searched repeatedly. These stories cannot be verified scientifically yet. They recur with such consistency across the globe that they raise a suspicion. If reality is programmed, then perhaps smaller roars sometimes cause objects to render incorrectly or temporarily vanish like missing data in a computer file. Some of the most unsettling evidence comes from the natural world. It behaves in ways that appear suspiciously mathematical. Consider how now flakes, crystals, and galaxies all follow precise geometric patterns. Spirals, fractals, and ratios like the golden mean appear again and again in nature. It is as if the universe runs on a repeating algorithm. Patterns echo at every scale from the smallest atom to the largest star system. A computer simulation would likely use such repeated designs to save processing power, reusing efficient code in different forms. Perhaps that is exactly what we see in nature. Physics, too, continues to raise eyebrows. The speed of light, for example, is a constant universal maximum that nothing can exceed. Some sigh. Scientists compare it to the frame rate in a video game, a limit imposed by the system to regulate how reality is processed. Similarly, quantum mechanics reveals a bizarre pixelated quality to the universe. Matter does not exist as a smooth, continuous field, but as discrete packets, quanta-like pixels on a screen. Perhaps this granularity is not natural, but the result of reality being built from finite bits of information, just like digital images. Researchers have even conducted experiments that hint at simulation, like scientists searching for the smallest pixel in reality. Some have attempted to measure whether space itself is continuous or divided into discrete units. Theories such as loop quantum gravity suggest the universe may be granular at the smallest scale. If proven, it would mean space and time are not infinitely divisible but quantized, as though programmed. Even cosmic observations carry unsettling implications. When scientists examine the distribution of cosmic rays, high-energy particles from space, they discover unusual alignments. Patterns appear where an omnis should reign. Some researchers suggest this may be evidence of a hidden grid underlying the universe, just as a simulation would be built on a computational framework. It is thought the cosmos itself is whispering that beneath the stars lies structure, not chaos, a lattice of hidden code. Human consciousness also complicates the picture. Neuroscience struggles to explain how subjective experience emerges from the firing of neurons. Why do we feel alive? Why do we possess awareness? Some theorists propose that consciousness may not be generated by the brain, but may instead be the key interface. Why? The simulation, perhaps our minds are terminals connected to the larger system. And if that is true, then death itself may not be an end but merely a leg out from this program. Technology pushes these questions further. Virtual reality grows more immersive with each passing year. Already humans create simulated worlds with weather, animals, landscapes, and characters that behave independently. Artificial intelligence produces art, music, and conversations indistinguishable from those made by people. If we're capable of creating such complexity today, what ill civilizations achieve in centuries, imagine simulated beings within those worlds who believe they are real. They would never suspect their existence was designed. How different would their situation be from ours? Stranger reports from individuals add fuel to the suspicion. Some claim to have seen the world freeze for a moment, birds in the sky, suspended motionless cars halted mid-road, then resuming as if nothing happened. Others described dreams that felt more vivid than waking life, only to awaken with knowledge they could not have otherwise obtained. These accounts blur the line between imagination and evidence, but they echo the feeling that reality sometimes glitches. Even our collective myths may conceal memories of earlier awakenings. Ancient stories across cultures describe the world as an illusion, a dream, or a game of gods. The Hindu concept of Lila describes creation as divine play. Native American traditions speak of reality as a dream from which one can awaken. Plato spoke of shadows on a wall, and medieval mystics whispered that the world was a deceptive veil. Could it be that humanity has always sensed the truth but lacked the language of modern technology to describe it? Today we call it a simulation. In earlier times they called it may illusion or dream, but the core suspicion is identical. Perhaps the most chilling clue is the way history repeats itself. Wars and fall, empires grow and collapsed. Discoveries follow familiar arcs. It is as if humanity is caught in cycles, repeating scenarios over and over again like levels in a program. Reset, play, reset again. The patterns of history may not be random at all, but the product of an underlying system designed to recycle. A stories for reasons we cannot understand, and so when we look at déjà vu, coincidences, disappearing objects, collective false memories, repeating patterns in nature, and the bizarre behavior of particles, we see no random mysteries, but possible glitches in the fabric of existence. Each clue by itself may be dismissed, but together they weave a disturbing picture. These sense that we're participants in a system too vast to fully perceive, a stage play written in code, a dream manufactured with precision. If the world is a simulation, then the glitches are the cracks that allow us to glimpse at the machinery behind the curtain. They are the whispers of the system, the tinny reminders that reality is not as seamless as it seems. And every time we notice them, we face the same haunting possibility that we're not living in the real world at all, but in something designed to keep us believing that we're. Humanity has always turned to science to make sense of mysteries that haunt our imagination. While folklore and philosophy whisper possibilities, the laboratory demands proof. Yet even within the rigid walls of scientific inquiry, questions arise that sound eerily similar to the notion that our universe could be a sophisticated simulation. The deeper scientists look, the stranger reality appears, and the boundaries between empirical truth and science fiction blur. One of the most striking voices on this subject is Nick Bostrom, a philosopher at Oxford University who formalized the simulation argument. His thought experiment poses a seemingly simple trilemma. Either humanity goes extinct before reaching post-human technological capabilities, or advanced civilizations lose interest in creating simulations. Or if they do create such simulations, then the number of simulated realities would vastly outnumber one base reality. In that case, the odds suggest that we are far more likely to be inside a simulation than outside it. The elegance of this argument is that it does not require proof in the traditional sense. It uses probability and logic to box us into a deeply unsettling conclusion. The simulation argument reached a wider audience when public figures like Elon Musk declared their belief in it. Musk argued that video game technology advanced from pixelated Pong to photorealistic virtual worlds within just a few decades. Extrapolate that progress thousands or millions of years, and the realism of future simulations would be indistinguishable from reality. If such a development is possible, Musk concluded, then the chance that we are living in base reality is almost zero. This statement resonated because it came not from a philosopher in an ivory tower, but from a technologist actively pushing the boundaries of what machines can do. The rapid growth of virtual reality, artificial intelligence, and immersive gaming worlds adds fuel to the discussion. When players don headsets and step into digital environments, they often feel genuine presence, despite knowing the world is fake. If our minds can be so thoroughly convinced by crude 21st century hardware, what would a simulation billions of times more advanced achieve? The line between real and artificial may already be thinner than we imagine. Yet it is physics, rather than philosophy, that delivers some of the strangest hints. Consider the discovery of the Planck length, the smallest possible unit of space below which nothing can be divided. Space, it seems, is not infinitely smooth but granular like pixels. Quantum mechanics reinforces this view by describing energy in discrete packets, quanta. This raises the disturbing possibility that the universe has resolution settings much like a computer screen. If so, then perhaps reality is programmed at its foundation. Furthermore, the mystery of quantum observation deepens the puzzle. Experiments, such as the double-slit test, show that particles behave like waves of probability until observed. At the moment of measurement, they collapse into a single state. Some researchers interpret this as evidence that reality does not fully exist until it is observed. Just as a video game only renders the parts of the world where the player is looking, the universe might only calculate details when required. Cosmology also contributes unsettling clues. The concept of cosmic fine-tuning highlights how the constants of physics seem perfectly adjusted to allow life. A slight deviation in the strength of gravity, the mass of the electron, or the speed of light would result in a sterile universe. Some scientists suggest that fine-tuning could be explained if our universe is a simulation designed intentionally to host conscious beings. The constants are not random, but parameters set by the programmers. Meanwhile, computer scientists find eerie parallels between the structure of the universe and information systems. In 2017, physicists discovered strange error-correcting codes woven into the mathematics of string theory, the leading candidate for a theory of everything. Error-correcting codes are the same systems used in computers to detect and fix data corruption. If these codes are truly embedded in the laws of physics, it implies that reality itself operates on informational architecture, similar to a computer program. The digital physics movement goes even further, suggesting that information, not matter, is the true foundation of the universe. The late physicist John Archibald Wheeler famously coined the phrase "it from bit," arguing that everything physical arises from binary yes-no decisions at the quantum level. If Wheeler was right, then the universe is not a vast machine of matter and energy, but an ocean of information processing. Much like the binary code of computers, reality itself could be a computational construct. Philosophy, however, reminds us that such speculations are not new. Centuries before computers, philosophers wrestled with doubts about perception. Plato's allegory of the cave describes prisoners mistaking shadows for reality, while Descartes questioned whether an evil demon might be deceiving our senses. In many ways, the simulation argument is simply a modern reimagining of these ancient doubts, dressed in the language of technology and probability. Religious traditions also echo these ideas. Hinduism describes Maya, the illusionary nature of the world. Buddhism teaches that reality is a projection shaped by mind rather than substance. Christian mysticism sometimes portrays earthly life as a temporary test within a grander design. If one strips away theological language, the parallels to the simulation argument become uncanny. Perhaps ancient sages intuited what modern theorists now articulate with mathematics, that reality is not what it seems, and that behind the veil lies a higher intelligence. Skeptics, of course, push back strongly. They argue that until testable predictions can distinguish the simulation hypothesis from other explanations, it remains unfalsifiable and thus outside science. Some warn that obsession with the simulation idea may reflect technological hubris, projecting our digital age obsessions onto the cosmos just as earlier cultures imagined gods wielding thunder. Yet even critics admit that many mysteries in physics, consciousness, and cosmology remain unresolved, and that the simulation argument provides one of several frameworks for grappling with them. As technology advances, researchers actively search for ways to test the hypothesis. Some propose examining the distribution of high-energy cosmic rays. If reality is simulated, then limitations of the computational grid might produce detectable anomalies in the way particles spread. Others suggest probing whether the speed of light could vary slightly in certain conditions, betraying computational shortcuts. Though no definitive evidence has emerged, the fact that serious scientists design such experiments demonstrates how far the idea has penetrated mainstream thought. The psychological impact of the hypothesis is profound. For some, it inspires existential dread. If everything is a simulation, then what is the meaning of life? What value do love, morality, and beauty hold if we are programs? For others, the idea is liberating. If reality is code, then perhaps it can be hacked. Maybe consciousness itself can transcend the simulation and reach the realm of the creators. Some spiritual seekers even reinterpret prayer and meditation as forms of communication with the system administrators of reality. In the world of technology, researchers in artificial intelligence push the frontier further. Machines already simulate human conversation, decision-making, and creativity. Deep learning networks mimic the architecture of the brain. What happens when such systems begin to create their own simulated realities? Could we one day find ourselves inside a simulation within a simulation? And if that possibility exists, how can we be sure we are not already living inside such nested layers? Fiction continues to explore these haunting questions. Beyond the Matrix, films, television series like Westworld or Black Mirror imagine digital consciousness, simulated worlds, and blurred lines between human and machine. These stories resonate not because they are mere entertainment, but because they touch on fears and intuitions we already carry deep inside. If our media so powerfully anticipates the erosion of boundaries between the real and the artificial, perhaps it reflects a subconscious recognition that the line has always been fragile. Ultimately, the simulation hypothesis occupies a liminal space between science, philosophy, and myth. It refuses to be confined to one domain. It draws on cutting-edge physics, yet echoes the oldest stories of illusion. It provokes skepticism, but also ignites imagination. Whether or not it is true, the very act of considering it reshapes how we see ourselves in the cosmos. And so the scientist, the philosopher, the mystic, and the storyteller all converge on the same haunting thought. What if everything we touch, everything we feel, everything we know is part of a vast design? What if reality is not the final layer, but only interface between us and something far greater? The question lingers unresolved, but unstoppable once asked. The more we search, the more we sense that the ground beneath our feet may be less solid than we believe. The deeper we travel into the idea that reality might be nothing more than a simulation, the more unsettling questions begin to emerge. If the universe is a program, then who or what is running it and why? If we accept that the rules of physics are lines of code, then the programmers could change those rules at will and we would never know. Until we have assumed that gravity, the speed of light, and the expansion of space are constants, but perhaps they are simply parameters, adjustable values in an unimaginably vast system. In this light, every strange anomaly in science takes on a new meaning. Black holes could be errors in the code glitches, where the system compresses information to prevent overload, dark matter, and dark energy. The invisible scaffolding of the cosmos could be patches of the program hastily written to stabilize the simulation while it runs. The cosmic microwave background, the radiation echo of the Big Bang, might instead be the startup screen of the universe, an initial flash as the system was booted into existence. The notion does not stop at physics, it reaches into the fabric of consciousness. If the bar ain't a biological machine, then thoughts, emotions, and memories are simply processes executed by circuits of neurons. But why do feel alive? Why do experience the warmth of sunlight on skin or the grief of loss? The Matrix theory suggests that consciousness itself might be simulated user interface designed to keep us engaged in the world. Our identities could be avatars built to interact with the program. We may not be soul-strapped in flesh, but rather data rendered into experience. If this were true, then dreams could be hints of another layer. They bend logic, warp time, and defy natural laws, if for a few hours each night we escape the strict rules of the main simulation. Perhaps dreams are background server test environments or Venn communications from outside the system. Some philosophers have dared to ask whether death itself is a transition, not end, but a log out from this simulation into another level beyond. Naturally, such speculation raises ethical concerns. If the universe is simulated, then someone must have chosen to simulate it. Who are they, advanced humans from a distant future running ancestral progress? Amsto study their past beings from another dimension experimenting with creation or an intelligences, solely that its motives are unknowable. And what does that mean for us? Are we experiments entertainment or simply accidents of curiosity? History itself becomes suspicious under this lens. Their repeating cycles of rise and collapse of civilizations, their occurrence of similar myths across cultures, and the apparent coincidences that shape human destiny might not be random at all. They could be patterns embedded in the simulation, deliberate scripts, design, and to test outcomes or to see whether humanity can evolve beyond its limits. Even the very idea of prophecy might reflect echoes of code scripts waiting to be executed. It is tempting to dismissal of this as fantasy, but technology in our own world edges closer to making it plausible. Virtual reality grows more lifelike with each passing year. Artificial intelligence creates words, images, and voices, indistinguishable from human creativity. Quantum computers hint at power far beyond classical limits. If in just a handful of decades we can build digital worlds. At Fool these senses, what might a civilization with millions of years of progress achieve? They could create universes so convincing that the inhabitants would never question their authenticity until anomalies appeared. And anomalies do appear. People across the world report moments where time feels like it loops. They speak of glitches, sudden slips where the fabric of reality behaves strangely, repeating sounds, misplaced objects, sudden impossible coincidences. Are these simply quirks of perception, or are they evidence of the program revealing IT seems in a world designed to appear seamless? Even a single crack can reveal the truth beneath the surface. The most terrifying implication is choice. If we're simulated, then do we truly have free will? Are our decisions ours alone, or are they guided by scripts? If the programmers control the parameters, perhaps every choice we make is anticipated record and nudge towards certain outcomes. Yet some argue that consciousness, no matter how simulated, still creates meaning. Even inside a system, our emotions, relationships, and struggles feel real to us, and perhaps that is what gives them value. The Matrix as an idea has always carried both fear and hope. Fear because it suggests we're prisoners in a reality we cannot control. Hope because if the system is built, then maybe it can be hacked. If reality is code, perhaps the code can be rewritten. Perhaps awakening is possible. Perhaps the very act of questioning the simulation is the first step towards seeing beyond it. As the camera pulls back across cities, glowing with artificial light, across oceans, reflecting the stars, across galaxies spinning silently in the dark, the question lingers: what if everything we know is an illusion? What if the world around uses no more than lines of code flickering in an endless circuit board somewhere beyond comprehension? And if that is true, then the most important question of all remains waiting in the shadows. Not whether the Matrix is real, but whether we're ready to wake up.